unused money that was allocated to the legislature for district purposes should be seized and frozen, and that money should be used towards balancing and addressing the $68 billion budget deficit. I want to make sure that the money that I've received, and as well as my other colleagues, get into the hands of the people who needs it, because we understand, because we represent these communities, and we understand the money that we got in this year's budget, 2023, it was specific, it was thoughtful, and it was purposeful that these organizations get into the hands of, to need these resources for the common good of the community.
Hello and welcome again to Sacktown Talks. Today we're glad to be joined by my man Mike Gibson here again. Mike, welcome to the program. Good to see you again.
Great seeing you. Thank you very much for giving me another opportunity to be here. Appreciate it.
No worries. So this is what, the end of the year, legislative wins, 2023 good for you?
23 has been tremendously good. We've had a number of wins, a number of victories. The governor's been gracious. The legislature has been gracious. 10 bills goes in effect that I authored. They go in effect January 1st, 2024. The governor signed 10 of my bills. I have a couple bills that we made 2-year bills. A few bills we made 2-year bills. So I'm excited to hit the ground running January 3rd and coming back and completing the work that we started.
So how many did you send to the governor?
We sent to the governor 14.
14, okay.
14 and 14. I'm sorry, 13. And he vetoed 3.
And what did he say in these veto messages?
All of the 3 had budget allocations.
Okay.
And so because we dealt with the budget, he was not doing it in the bill process. So anything that had any budget connotations to it, he was vetoing not only my bill, but other bills as well.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
We just had, this big budget surplus, $100 billion, and now it looks like it's kind of dipping the other way.
$68 billion, so I'm told. But I'm sure that's the way it is right now. I'm sure when we get back and people pay their income tax, the economy is changing. The recession looks more and more dimmer. And the economy is robust. Job market is, increased. I think it would be less than a $68 billion budget deficit. But if in case it doesn't, then we have some hard decisions to make.
Yeah. So what was your first year? Was it 2014?
2014.
2014. So this is your 9th year?
9th year in the state legislature.
So 9th year, you got 10 bills signed. Can you tell us what about your bills that were signed, and what are these new laws going to be taking effect January 1st? Sure.
January 1st, one of my bills is excited delirium, which is AB 360. AB 360 is dealing with prohibiting coroners from using the term excited delirium. And the reason why that's important is because it doesn't exist. The World Health Organization have said it doesn't exist. It's debunked. It's not something that's backed by science or data. The American Psychiatric Association said it doesn't exist, and also the doctors also said it doesn't exist. So why are we using this? So Assembly Bill 360 prohibits, bars any coroner from ruling someone's cause of death as it being caused by excited delirium. So you can't use it because it doesn't exist. And so what we've seen is this being used only in instances in which police officers and someone dies in police officers' custodies. So something else has to be, we just want the cause of death. When someone dies, the real cause of death to be affixed on someone's death certificate and not excited delirium. And so that's what this bill does. In addition to AB 360, Assembly Bill 373, which ensures that foster youth basically has a priority access to summer and also winter session. Why this is important is because if you're a foster youth, you're trying to make up credits, right? And so you should be put into the front of the line and made a priority so that you can get the classes you need in the summer session as well as winter session so that you can catch up and make grades up. So that's important for our foster youth in the state of California. In addition to that, Assembly Bill 844, which paves the way for clean truck technology by identifying and addressing insurance barriers. What that means is we have brand new technology and we don't know how to insure it.
Oh,
So if we don't
interesting.
know how to insure it,
Right.
then we don't know if we're insuring this new technology in an appropriate manner to
Right.
cover in case something happens. And so what this bill does, it collects data. What this bill does, it also makes sure that we are on point when it comes down to what the insurance premiums are going to be and things of that nature, but also making sure that our air is clean for our children to have this new technology moving forward. So that's really important. And I'm very grateful that the insurance commissioner was a sponsor of this particular bill. In addition to that, Assembly Bill 1089. And this strengthens our California ghost guns laws dealing with untraceable guns. And these are guns that you can make using a 3D printer, a milling press, getting a digital code in order to put into a computer for it to come out the way you want it. This narrows who can use it, who has access to it. So if you are in fact making a ghost gun is something that's untraceable, undetectable. The Department of Justice, law enforcement doesn't know it even exists. So if they don't know it exists, therefore it's untraceable, especially if a gun is used in a homicide or drive-by shooting, we don't know to track it. And that's the whole purpose of you buy a gun, it's registered, has a
Right.
serial number, we can trace it back to the owner. These ghost guns are hard because of the technology and using a 3D printer. And what this bill, again, does, it makes sure that we hold everybody accountable and making sure that we get a handle on these guns that are being produced outside of licensed California gun distributors. And so also another bill that I'm very proud of, it's a bill that's dealing with our DMV, Assembly Bill 1606. Why this bill is important, what we found during the pandemic, if a senior citizen, one of our elderly, have to go to a DMV, they have to stand in line
Right.
to get their driving license renewed, to do whatever you need to do at DMV. What this does, it allows them to be able to do it online so they can not have to be there physically to get a license renewed. And it cuts down on the frustration for seniors being in long lines for hours. I don't know how many times you've been. You may not have to go to a DMV, but most people have to wait in DMV for hours. It's almost like sitting in a doctor's office waiting
Right.
for them to be seen. And it's quite grueling for those seniors. And so this bill targets those 70 above to making sure that they can do what they need to do via the DMV and online with our virtual reality and our technology we have. Why not use it for our seniors for the benefit of them? And this bill was supported by a lot of senior groups, our senior legislature, ARP, and the list goes on and on. So the governor signed this bill into law, and I'm extremely excited.
No, that's awesome. Sounds like you had a great year. So kind of, 2024 is coming up. Kind of what are you looking forward to kind of tackling what issues?
Well, as always, since I've been elected since 2014, I've always dealt with bills in the space of creating sensible gun legislation, right? Because we still have so many guns, illegal guns, and people who should not have and possess these guns winding up in the hands of these individuals or winding up on our streets. And we know when these guns are in prohibited individuals' hands, not all, but most of the times, that these guns are wind up in homicides,
Right.
drive-by shootings, mass shootings. And so we want to put sensible legislation that's going to decrease these kinds of situations from taking place in California. California has some of the most strictest gun legislation than any other state in the union. And I'm proud of that because what it means is that one, that we have this as a state's priority. Two, that we know technology and people who shouldn't have guns get guns. We want to limit the ability for those individuals who have mental illnesses, making sure they don't have access to guns. If you're domestic violence, make sure the guns are taken out from the home, making sure that you can't go buy 100 guns at one given time. making sure that ghost guns are not winding up and being part of our atmosphere of mass shootings, taking people's lives away, going to our schools, our churches, our clubs, and things of that nature. And so I'm proud of the work that California has done and we continue to do to help lead the nation. But I'm also proud that we'll not only have sensible gun legislation for 2024, we also will champion foster youth. Making sure that our foster youth have the kind of rights, the kind of things that they need to have and symbolize some kind of nurturing home that they can call home and people who love them unconditionally. And so we'll continue to put forth those kinds of legislation. Education is still a priority for me. We'll still put forth educational legislation, working with our stakeholders, both in education, in academia, to put forth legislation to making sure that we have a very robust educational system that exists in the state of California. And the list just goes on and on. We're just, again, and also we'll be doing something, I'm sure, around in the environment. I chair the Select Committee on the Ports and Goods Movement in the state of California, where we're dealing with, of course, pollution. We're dealing with emissions. We have a number of trucks on our streets, and we want to make sure that those trucks that are the number one emitters of toxics and things of that nature in our air, that we put those individuals in a more environment-friendly kind of trucks. But it comes with a price. A diesel truck potentially could cost $150,000 to $200,000. And so it's going to be hard to make that switch, but we want to be able to offer incentives in ways that make sense to move those individuals out of those old kind of trucks and get them in a more environmental free. So we're going to be doing those kinds of works as well moving forward. But we're also, again, tackling the budget. Last year in 2023, I had a great year. I was able to get $1.25 million for our South Bay Center for Counseling, which is called SBCC, which is a great organization that's housed in San Pedro. We have iHeart Watts, iHeart Compton, iHeart San Pedro, iHeart Wilmington, and these are organizers that help build and organize the community and empower the community. We were able to get another $1.25 million for Beacon House Association of San Pedro. And this is so very critical because this great organization take men who have been on drugs and narcotics and really turn themselves around by going into this 2-year program, because sometimes it takes 2 years for you to be sober and meet sobriety and turn your lives around. And that's what the Beacon House San Pedro has done, remarkable work in turning these men's lives around. Also $80 million for the juvenile court school, which is phenomenal, making sure that our juveniles, again, back to foster youth, back to those individuals we want to give second chances. We want to give those young people opportunity to write a new narrative moving forward, and also surround themselves with positive figures. So this juvenile court school helps those individuals who are still of age, still of school age, turn their lives around with resources set up to really help them and move their lives forward in a real significant way. So we continue to do that. I'm very excited that we were able to move about $5 million into my district, right where the people need it. Now,
Right.
the challenge is going to be, Jared, is because we have a $68 billion budget deficit, is holding on to it and making sure that we get it out to the people right away before the legislature potentially, and I say potentially, may look at some of those opportunities with money still standing there and redirect those
Yeah.
monies.
Can you explain that? So, like, this was awarded to your community this year,
Yes.
but they might not necessarily get it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that there's a number of proponents on the budget who study the budget from various sides,
Right.
who have said that unused money that was allocated to the legislature for district purposes should be seized and frozen, and that money should be used towards balancing and addressing the $68 billion budget deficit. And so for me, I want to make sure that the money that I've received, and as well as my other colleagues, get into the hands of the people who needs it, because we understand, because we represent these communities,
Right.
and we understand the money that we got in this year's budget, 2023. It was specific, it was thoughtful and it was purposeful that these organizations get into the hands of to need these resources for the common good of the community. And so I would hate to see that money redirected
Right.
to balance the state's budget. Now, we will balance the state's budget. We have again, and I want to thank Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown, with his wisdom, created the rainy day fund. He made sure that we were able to put money away as our savings account,
Right.
as our rainy day fund, and I absolutely commend him for doing that. That budget has risen. And so certainly there's talks about dipping into that reserve to help balance the budget. And so we're going to look at a number of different combinations, but I'm very encouraged by Jesse Gabriel, my colleague from the San Gabriel Valley, who's the new budget chair of the State Assembly, that he will bring us all together under our speaker's authority and have a very robust discussion in terms of making sure that we do the most prudent thing and the right thing for the people of the state of California, but balance our budget.
Right. So, as you just noticed, we had a speaker change mid-year.
We did.
Kind of how's that changing your life in the legislature?
Well, let me tell you how it changed my life. It changed my life. One, Speaker Robert Rivas has appointed me to chair the committee, the Standing Committee on Arts, Entertainment, Sports, and Tourism. It's a long title.
Right.
All that means is that I oversee all the entertainment, which means the movie studios, the record studios, the record industry, every professional sports there is in the state of California, tourism.
It's basically like everything important to California, everything that we do and see here.
I think everything important that California has to offer.
What we're known for.
Around what we're known for. Hollywood, lights, glitter. Exactly. And so there were bills left over. And I want to say that Assemblywoman Sharon Cork Silver did a fine job as the chair of that committee. And there are 2-year bills that are awaiting us to make decisions on January the 10th, and we'll come back. It's our very first hearing and address those few bills that are 2-year bills that has to be addressed in January.
Really, that's the deadline, right?
That's the deadline.
Wow.
And so
you got to get to work fast.
We got to get to work fast, but we're understanding where we are. And so I want to make sure that once the speaker makes a decision on committee assignments, that we're able to bring the new members, if there be any new members, up to speed, so that they can vote authoritatively with knowledge and with all the facts and figures and information before them.
What are some of the issues facing the movie industry here in California? I know other areas try to poach
film
the
tax
business.
credit. Film tax credit.
We had this big strike this year. Kind of what's the layout?
Well, I want to make sure that doesn't happen again, because that really hurts the movie industry of the world, and that's, I say, California, right? We have huge studios, some of the largest studios in the country. And what goes with that is a lot of lives and people working in those studios. So they had the largest strike of history in California. And so now they reached an agreement. Now they got to put their pieces back together. People lost their homes. They had to go and work fast food jobs. And these are the stories and narratives that people have shared with us. So I'm glad they're put back to work. The film tax credit, we want to, and I'm unapologetic for this. As chair of this committee, I want to make sure that our film tax credit is robust, that it competes with other states like Georgia and Canada. I want that worked right here in California. I'm selfish, and I admit that, but I say it without pause and without any reservations. I want that work right here, putting people to work, making sure that the mom and pop, who those actors and screen and workers have to go to and patronize their business, get coffee, get donuts, to get a sandwich, all that coming right here. That's under a labor agreement that most of them are under. And so we want to make sure that, again, that we rebound from this pause due to this labor dispute that has now concluded, and that we put people back to work, and we help move California, with this industry being a big part of our success moving it forward.
Yeah, it's changed so much with streaming and, all this new
AI.
stuff. AI.
Yeah. I didn't understand it, but I understand the fight now about people's identity And you can't take advantage of that. And I'm glad they reached a decision and an agreement on that so we can move forward. Because AI, if you don't know, can be very scary, right? And so, especially dealing with people's identity and your identity or your name being used and for someone else to profit from it, and you get none of the profits or the royalties. And so that's concerning, but I'm glad they reached an agreement as it relates to that. And so I'm looking at trying to take this committee. One of the things we have right now that is controversial, one of my colleagues, whether or not we deal with tackle football from 12 years of age on down. The science concludes that, and I don't have a decision one way or the other. We're still gathering facts and hearing from professionals. If we should eliminate tackle football from 12 years of age on down so that these kids don't sustain the kind of injuries that NFL players, suffer from moving forward. And picking up from 13 and up, where your brain is somewhat developed but can handle being in this space in terms of a tackle football. So that's on the table. And I understand that there's a lot of mixed emotions on both sides of this issue. But I'm confident that we're going to reach a resolution.
That's something you got to weigh in on now, huh?
I have to weigh in on it.
Pop Warner football.
Pop Warner football will still exist.
Right.
And I want to underscore, it's just whether or not it's flag from 12 years of age on down and 13 and up is contact, it's tackle. So it's that kind of dynamic. But most of all, tackle, sports, especially after school, especially for kids in the inner city, they need that. They need that kind of camaraderie. They need that kind of atmosphere, because what it does, it keeps those kids out of trouble.
Right, it's an outlet, yeah.
It's an outlet, and absolutely, and they become a family. I played growing up.
What'd you play?
I played tight end.
Didn't expect that.
Oh, okay. But my sports was actually baseball,
right?
Center field, rover, and track and field, right? But we need to look at all those, because we had a kid 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, was hit in the head by a baseball bat, and he didn't recover, and the family had to receive the news after much prayer and much community outcry in terms of supporting the family. They have to make the decision, because there was no brainwaves, for them to, place him to rest. I mean, take him off life support that wasn't going to change his life.
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? That's really, really hard. But we want to make sure that no kids have to go through that, right? And we're trying to look at it from a very sensible and a balanced approach.
Yeah, no, it's real. No, I got friends who got their bell rung when they were kids, and they got CTE, and they're a little slow now. So yeah, I think kind of makes sense. But
right,
that decision's on you, Mike.
No, it's on the committee. I'm only one vote. It's on the committee, but that's where we're here in Sacramento. Good, bad, or indifferent, we have to make the decisions, and sometimes it's an unpopular decision. That's why we have to take into consideration all the facts.
Right.
We can't discard the medical community in this space. And that's the reason why I reached out to the NFL and I asked NFL, make a decision. Yeah. Right? Because you have
what did Goodell say?
Science. We're still waiting for that. We're still waiting for them to weigh in. But we hope they weigh in very soon so we can figure out. And with the balance, I want to provide all the information to my colleagues for them to make a very sensible and a wise decision. Right. But no way will this decision eliminate Pop Warner football or any kind of football. It's really whether it's flag, which is still competitive, and still have the nuts and bolts in terms of being camaraderie, building leadership capabilities, working as a team. All that's still built in. It's just whether or not tackle should be part of that conversation or flag.
Right. No, that's fascinating. What about the tourism? Like California pre-COVID was tourist place. We always had the commercials like come to California.
Right.
I assume that's probably under your auspice now. Like, we see stuff about like San Francisco seems to be suffering.
It is.
What's the status of our tourism out there? And how can we kind of boost that up again?
Well, I want to hear from thoughtful people in terms of what we should be doing, and keeping in mind that we're in a very tough budget year, right? So it's going to be hard to try to deal with money because in order to help build California's profile, we need to be able to reach other states and see and create the glamour, the glitz, to talk about California, and also making sure that we can rise above and address some of the issues that California face, like homelessness, right? When people see California, we don't want them to see homelessness as part of their narrative when they come, but we want them to see our shining seas, our oceans, our mountains, the Hollywood sign. We want them to walk in Hollywood and see, the beautiful stars on the Walk of Fame. We want them to see some of our parks, our state parks, our community parks that really speaks to people coming to California. Our amusement parks, Disneyland, Magic Mountain, Knoxbury Farm, the Wax Museum. We want them to see that so they can come and look at California as a vacation destination for them to come to, and also a place for them to also maybe want to live and make California their home. But we have to figure out how do we attract that audience to come to California and make California a place they want to visit, but also ultimately they want to stay and live.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think San Francisco was like the #1 tourist destination in the world pre-COVID. So
really, San Francisco?
Yeah.
Not L.A.?
Yeah, not L.A.
Okay.
Can you believe that?
I can't believe that. I can't believe it. That's pretty interesting. I can only think of a few things that San Francisco have, and I think we have a lot more to offer. But I'm biased. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so please excuse my biasness.
No, definitely. So what else? You talked about the ports. Are you hanging on to that select committee on the ports? And you talked kind of like about clean energy. What is the clean energy space looking like for these trucks and boats and cranes and things like that? What's the future?
I think that again, we have to deal with a balanced approach. As I indicated, an example of the fact that we want to move to cleaner vehicles.
Yeah, what is that?
With the technology.
Is it hydrogen? Is it
Well,
what's
that's the
leading
debate.
right now?
That's the debate.
We don't know.
Whether it's hydrogen, whether it's all electric, there are a number of different variations out there. But we try to make sure that one, we clean our environment. We want to make sure our ports continue to thrive and grow because our ports is in fact the economic engine of California.
Oh yeah,
without our
crazy.
ports, we have the largest ports in the United States of America, highest producing, and we want to maintain that. We want to maintain our footing in California with our ports being robust, import, export taking place in our ports. But we also want to make sure that our ports are part of the California's agenda and priority as well. And so we've been having hearings. We had 3 hearings. We had one in Sacramento, one in Los Angeles, and also one in San Francisco. And also we're touring all 12 ports. We've toured 3. There's
12 ports in California?
There's 12 ports, but there's 11 private, and there's one.
Really?
I'm
private?
sorry. Excuse me. There's one that's private, and there are 11. Excuse me, that are public. And so we're going to tour all these ports in the state to get a better understanding what's needed. And how to address barriers if there be any, which there are in fact are, and to making sure that our ports continue to be the highest producing ports in the country.
No, that's fascinating.
Instead of going to China, instead of going to Canada or other states or other countries, we want them to come right here. Not Panama. We want them to come right here.
Have you gone to other ports around the world and kind of how they compare?
I've gone to China, and it's very interesting. And also I saw in France. Very interesting in terms of how their dynamics. They're a little bit different from our ports. They're not as busy as our ports, but nonetheless, they are a port. But I have also seen the investment. Right now, we have some states who are investing billions of dollars in their ports in terms of modernization, making sure that they address the climate as well. And it is part of each budget. And what that means to me as the chair of the Select Committee on Ports, Goods, and Goods Movement, if we don't make that same kind of investment, then they will stand to exceed us in California and take our work from California and reroute that work to that particular state
so like
and or country.
Who's challenging it? Like Oregon, Washington? Like where can these boats go?
Oh, Atlanta, Again, Canada,
So they just go through.
Panama,
Okay.
absolutely.
So
They'll take an extra 2 days to get there
Right.
if they're bottom line, and they'll welcome them, right? They're not turning away. They're not sitting somewhere idled in some port waiting to come in, right? But we want that work here because no one else does it better than California's ports
Right. Yeah, good weather.
and good weather.
Good way to sit on the boat there.
Absolutely.
You probably have like one of the most unique, diverse communities, the 65th. You have like every culture in there. What's it like at Christmas time? And what's your Christmas party schedule looking like this month, Mike?
Very busy. We were just in Watts this past Saturday. We had 100,000 toys.
What?
100,000
Wow.
toys, and we had
How many kids?
celebrities. Oh, well over 1,000 kids.
So each
well over
kid's getting
1,000
like
kids.
10 toys?
No, we gave these kids a trash bag, and these kids can go there in this maze and grab
In a maze. Wow.
toys out of the gymnasium as soon as they fill the trash bag up, they leave.
Yeah.
And then the next set comes in. But it was so joyful for me to see
That'd be pretty
their
awesome.
faces,
Yeah.
their parents' faces. We gave parents clothes, shoes. We had celebrity guests. There is one, I kid you not, I have it on my phone. A billionaire came because he's friends with the organizer, and he said that day, Saturday, was his mom's 30th anniversary of her passing. And she always wanted him to give back to the community. So he says, Mike, I need a pen. I said, this is the captain of the Los Angeles Police Department. Can I borrow your pen? I gave him a pen. What are you going to do? He says, wait a minute. So he
Unnamed billionaire.
From
From the Watts area.
He hasn't given me permission to mention his name. He wrote a check. He said, this is just an installment of $10,000.
Yeah.
And he wrote that check, and we gave it to the organizer of the event, right?
That's awesome.
And then we had someone else pledge a check of $250,000, right? That's what my district speaks of,
Yeah.
right? There are people who see a need and meet that need by their generous support to people who absolutely need it. And I want to, for your viewers who may not know where the Watts community is at and what I'm talking about, this is a housing development called Imperial Courts. There are 4 subsidized housing developments in my district. There are people who are receiving government assistance. And if it wasn't for a program and a visionary like Justin, Christmas time, there would be no one opening Christmas gifts, because they wouldn't be able to have the money in order to do it. And the pouring of love that came out, I had Stevie Wonder's family. I mean, it was just so many celebrities that gave of their time to being there and to pour out. And I'm very, very grateful they're in my district. But I have, it's indicative, even in the San Pedro area, we had toy giveaway. As a matter of fact, we brought and manufactured snow, and kids were going down a slide of snow in Watts, in Wilmington, in San Pedro. These are inner city kids who won't see snow in Los Angeles coming down out of the sky.
We hope not.
But we brought it to them. And they were making snowballs. They were hitting and throwing at each other. Just joyful. And for me to see that as a leader, as a policymaker, it was gratifying. But I know we made people's happy and their lives joyful for this holiday season. It shouldn't be just for the elite to celebrate, but it's for everyone, because that's the season we're in. And so I'm grateful to represent a very diverse community, and a community that gives once they see a need, but also a family atmosphere as well.
No, that's awesome. Well, for our listeners, make sure to check out Mike's Instagram, because that's where you get to see all this great stuff he's doing down in the district. Lots of cool stuff, and look forward to seeing what else you got planned for this year.
Oh, stay tuned, because it's going to be a lot. 2024 is going to be an exciting year, and I'm just glad to be able to serve. I'm glad that the voters exercise their right to vote. That's the most important.
It's a weird year, huh? We got the March primary, so you got to get to work quick here, huh?
You got to get to work. And my thing is, it makes no difference who you vote for. Just exercise that right to vote. And because of the voters has allowed me to be in the position I'm in, to be able to carry the legislation, and also to champion the budget ask that goes directly to the community, to be able to go to the feeding programs, the toy giveaways, and things of that nature. And I come along with my team to help manifest all that to fruition. So I thank the voters of my district, the 65th district, for being the best in California. And I think that I'm grateful.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the great things you're doing down in the 65th, and look forward to having you up here next year to work on more things involving ghost guns and whatever else you're tackling.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your viewers.
Thank you.
Or your listeners. Thank you.